Hey, welcome back to Everyday Economics. It's a podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, president of 501c3 nonprofit Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics is a production of America's Talking Network. Check out all of our great podcasts at americastalking.com. To support Everyday Economics and podcasts such as this one, please make your tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We are recording this episode on Tuesday, March 21st. And joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, Dr. Orphe Divounguy. He's a PhD economist. Dr. O, homelessness is this issue in this country for what feels like forever. But the prevalence of homelessness in the last 5 years, I'd say, and exacerbated by COVID, you've really made this a public-facing issue that it's just you can't ignore it, and major cities are, I think they're struggling to deal with this issue. There's been a tremendous amount of public money, tax dollars that have been pushed toward the resolution. Problems, however, don't seem to be solved. There are any number of tactics that cities around the country have taken. On its face, however, it does not appear that anybody has unlocked the code here. And so, I wanted to talk to you about homelessness and kind of tap into your understanding of just, the real estate market, the relationship between homelessness and the real estate market as a whole, rather than the societal ills that would be one of the underlying drivers of homelessness. Certainly drugs are a problem. Mental health issues are a problem, but housing availability, that's kind of your sweet spot.
Look, drugs are a problem everywhere, right? Around the entire country. All of these issues are a problem around the entire country. Yet homelessness is rising faster in places with the largest housing unit deficits. And that's it. I mean, it's just a matter of people are not different on the East Coast, from the West Coast, from the middle of the country. Humans still face the same demons. Here's the catch, though. Places with the biggest housing unit deficits before the pandemic, so house prices increase and rents surge. And those places today are the places seeing the largest increase in homelessness. Where are they? New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, Arizona, Denver, Colorado. Those are the places where people desperately need housing. You look at some of these places, on aggregate, I look at the data and I look at the country. In 2019, according to the American Community Survey, there were 7.9 million families that were doubling up. That means living with a non-relative in a home that they did not themselves own or rent, compared to just 4.1 million units, housing units available for rent or for sale. The gap is vast. So why is it that we don't have enough homes in this country, especially in those areas? I'll tell you why those areas are plagued. Those areas are plagued with this problem because they don't build. Why is it that they don't build? Two reasons. One reason you can't do anything about, right? You have geographic constraints to building. Mountains, lakes, coastal regions, right? It's harder to build there. I get it. But one problem can be fixed. It's a man-made issue. Those are some of the most regulated places when it comes to land use regulations and home building in the country. That's the problem. And I think if we're serious about improving housing affordability, if we're serious about bringing inflation down at a faster pace, which, by the way, rent is the most stubborn component in CPI. If we're serious about that, then we need to deregulate. We need to revisit these antiquated zoning rules. We need to look at land use regulations at the state and local level. Especially at the local level. The locals are the ones that are very well known for blocking new construction left and right. And we need to look at those very seriously.
Franklin News Foundation, which, operates America's Talking, also operates the Center Square Newswire service. Spencer Pauly is a reporter for the Center Square, and he's based in Seattle. He wrote a story this past week about the King County Council's 5-year plan. And this is from the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. Okay. And so this plan, which was presented in the middle of March, it includes more than 5,700 people being moved into permanent housing since the beginning of last year. There are also 8 homeless encampments that were resolved, transferring another 376 people into the shelter. Okay. So that's what's happened most recently from this authority. Some King County Council members, I'm reading directly from the story, are more concerned at the authority's asking price to complete a 5-year plan. So they're trying to solve this. They want to house 40,000 homeless people in the region with 48,000 units of permanent housing and temporary housing for up to another 36,000. That's what their need estimate is over the next 5 years. But the authority anticipates the cost of this to be $8.4 billion in capital and $1.7 to $3.4 billion in additional annual operating costs. So I get it. This is a problem. This is an attempt to solve it. But these numbers are staggering. This is going to be picked up by taxpayers in King County, right?
Look, when we talk about building regulations, we're talking about building permit approval delays. We're talking about the fact that builders cannot build in certain areas, and that 75% of the city of Seattle, for example, is zoned for single family housing only.
And Seattle has maybe the worst of it.
Land is scarce. If we run out of land, we got to build up. And that's just the bottom line. Look, Seattle has one of the worst racial home ownership gap, right? The black-white gap in home ownership in Seattle is some of the worst in the country. Only 36% of black households own their home in this area. And so if we keep the barrier to entry so high, it's unfair. It's just simply unfair. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair. I think a lot needs to be done to improve access. And the way to do that is to allow builders to build where it's possible, right? There's no new continents out there. Last time I checked, there was no new continent to build on, and people that have been disproportionately left behind, who have had land seized from them, should have the opportunity to buy a home. And the only way to do that is to build more units.
It's a massive subject. You and I'll absolutely come back and spend some more time with that. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and dozens of other quality podcasts at americastalking.com.
Freedom and liberty are important to all of us. If you're looking for civil, intellectual conversations with those shaping the future of freedom, try the Future of Freedom podcast with me, Scott Bertram. We speak with leaders across the country in the greater conservative and libertarian movements. In-depth conversations about where the next intellectual battles will happen across the country. It's the Future of Freedom podcast. Find it at americastalking.com or wherever you get your podcasts.